Be heard at this point, though.
Uh-oh.
Hello, and welcome to another First Line Frenzy here on Reedsy Live, Reedsy's ongoing series of webinars where we bring on people from the world of publishing to help you write, edit, market, publish better books. And as I said, today we're seeing the return. Oh my god, I'm re-hearing myself on another window. That's quite embarrassing. Anyway, I'll shut that one down. Yes, First Line Frenzy. A couple of days ago, I sent out a newsletter asking people to send in the first lines of a story or a book they're writing. And then we've brought on editor Rebecca Heyman, who will be having a look at these sight unseen. They're all cold to her, and she's going to read them and see whether she likes them and give you some pointers on how you might improve them, change them, or, yeah, if you just need to start over and find a stronger start. Sorry, I should have stopped all my notifications before this thing even started, but I shall do that now, so we shall be largely uninterrupted. Good to see so many of you folks here from all over the place. We moved it a little bit earlier than normal to, I would say to try to accommodate more people, but mostly Becca's got a kid, and so we've got to work around certain schedules. However, we have Scott from Seattle, Irene from Arlington. We have turn the mic up, you say? Okay, I'm going to turn it. Susanna says turn the mic up. So I've put it up as loud as it can go. I'm hitting some yellows and reds. So if you can't hear me, maybe you need to up the volume on your one. Yes, Cio Savi says hit the like button. I always forget to do this, but if you could hit the like button and maybe even throw a subscribe, that would be very, very helpful for us here at Reedsy. We put out lots of new content, 2 new videos from Shaylin every week, and then every other week we have a webinar. Can be like this, where you can send something in for an opinion of a professional, or it can be just a talk, a presentation, which is usually followed by a Q&A. But if you're looking to learn how to write or publish books, then yeah, subscribe us. There's lots of great new stuff to learn all the time. Okay, I've noticed that it's just 1 minute past the hour. So why not? Let's bring on my wonderful guest, Rebecca Heyman. Becca, how you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I've changed the setup of my room a little bit just to, I don't know, it's 2021, new year, new me. But yeah, how are you doing? Is it snowing where you are?
No, that is a white fence. We can address that question now. It's not snowing today. It's cold. It's only high of, I think our high today is 36 Fahrenheit today. It's very, very chilly.
Okay, yeah, we're on metric here, so that means nothing to me.
Yeah, it could be boiling hot for all you know. No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, would you like to tell the folks at home or wherever they are what we're going to be doing today?
Yes. So, First Line Frenzy, I have a feeling that not all of you are new to this process, which brings me a lot of joy. So welcome back to those who are joining us, not for the first time. And of course, welcome to all you first timers out there. First Line Frenzy started as a sort of Twitter hashtag party that I think I started in 2015. I've really lost track, where people send in their first lines and I offer some educational, entertaining edutainment critique. Our goal is, of course, to capture the strongest first line that we can. And, there's actually a lot of good work that can be done in a first line to entice an agent or reader to, keep going and capture their interest. So that's our goal. And that's about it.
Cool. I reckon we should get a start on with this. There'll be a lot of principles that Becca will share through her critique, so we don't need to cover any ground. Normally, I'll just put down the first lines, and then Becca can try to guess what the genre is. We'll do it the same, except on a few specific ones where I think it's probably important to either know the genre or the title before you start. Maybe.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Well, yeah, they're not bad. It's really the kids' books one, so...
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, let's see if this works. Here we go.
Mary isn't above stealing. Nobody in the town is above stealing. Okay, this feels a little bit like a statement of fact, right? I don't know that anybody is above stealing if the circumstances are correct. So I guess I'm more interested in the specific thing that Mary is keen to take. So I think, again, this is an interesting concept, and maybe this line belongs in a first paragraph or on a first page, but I would like to see more specificity in a first line. So good to focus on a single character, Mary. Good to sort of introduce a sort of counterintuitive idea that stealing is somehow normalized in this place or is somehow codified, but I would get even more specific and really lean into Mary's specific circumstances.
Cool. All right. By the way, like I had a look, and it looks like people are learning here because I think one of your biggest rules, I couldn't find anyone starting a scene waking up. So I think folks are
Thanks, guys.
You're getting through them.
Pay attention. We've been shouting about that for a couple of years now, so that's really, really positive.
All right. Oh, that one was Untitled by Alyssa Lang. This one is from Ara Sherilyn. Here we go.
The blades made a soft scraping sound against the ice as he landed his toe loop and started gliding in rotation back to his coach, who was waiting for him with a stopwatch. Okay, so I love the way that this activates the setting so quickly and lets us know who our character is, right? We don't get a name, but we know that our character is skating and isn't like hockey skating, right? It's figure skating, which is we're getting all of these great signals and you're activating the specific jargon of this sport. I think this is great. The alliteration on soft scraping sound obviously mimics the sound itself, which is beautiful. Ooh, what else is started gliding in rotation? Back to his coach who was waiting for him with a stopwatch. I think this is great. I wouldn't change this. I think this is a gold star for me.
Cool.
I think it's great.
Well done, Ara. That was a young adult novel behind closed doors.
Okay, that sounds very scary and sketchy, but maybe this is about, obviously we know that there have been some serious scandals about coaches and things like that in gymnastics, and maybe this novel reveals a similar scary underbelly to the world of youth ice skating. I don't know. The title gives me pause, but the first line's fantastic.
Yeah, like a YA seems to be tackling more and more tough subjects these days.
Yeah, get in there with the issues. But I would also say that I promise that if you Google book behind closed doors, there's probably a dozen with that title already. Obviously working titles we don't need to take too seriously, and that's not the purpose of this broadcast, but I would definitely work in some kind of figure skating language in that title to sort of access it and communicate with your readers about what exactly you're writing about. Anyway, that's cool. Another conversation.
All right. Here's our next one from Blythe.
An eerie green glow transformed the small park at midnight. Okay. Again, this is a fact sentence. This is something that happened, right? Transformed into what, right? I guess this is just one lens too far, right? So I just want you to get a little bit closer and tell me what the park is transformed into or the source of the eerie green glow. This is just a little bit too distant from the meat of the matter, the heart of the matter. So I would just lean in a little bit closer. I don't think, there's that sort of conventional wisdom not to start with a dark and stormy night, right? And this sort of trips into that territory a little bit by focusing exclusively on setting. There's no character here. We just have this disembodied green glow. So I again, just lean into the scene more and find more specificity and more activity to get us invested in whatever is going on here.
Cool. That was On Location with Danger, a crime novel. And I guess on a similar vein, this is probably no big spoiler.
From his office window in the Lewis and Clark County Detention Center, Detective Christo Byrne watched the rain freeze and felt like a man clawing without purchase from within the black waters of a hole in the ice. There's a lot to unpack here. Martin, have you been watching Lupin on Netflix by any chance?
It's a French show. I have not.
It is so good. It is a sort of detective procedural, and there's a strong bookish element. Sorry for the crying child. There's a strong bookish element in it, and this kind of made me think of that because we just finished it last night, and it's stupendous. But what I want to say here is that weather, when it's typical, is not interesting. And so unless this is, a rainstorm in the desert or a snowstorm in California, I'm not as keen to start there because you're just starting with the normal. But what I want you to start with is the change, what makes it abnormal. I find that my procedural authors are always in a rush to identify the detective's full name and the exact location of the police station or whatever it is. And I just feel like our goal here is to start with character. So I am interested in why Detective Byrne feels this feeling, right, of clawing without purchase from within the black waters of a hole in the ice. That is very compelling. The rest is not so compelling. So even if, watching the rain freeze is the impetus for Byrne to reflect on this feeling or to have this feeling, you have to find a better access point to bring us into that experience. It's a really potent phrase. There's some nice work there, but the rest of the sentence has to come up to par with sort of the latter half.
Cool. Just to answer a question in the comments there, we're going by first sentence, I think, is the rule you've long established.
Yes, first sentence, first line frenzy was honestly just like a pithier hashtag for me to use on Twitter, but it definitely established the rule that first line equals first sentence. Yes.
Cool. That was One Good Murder, a police procedural from C.A. Blanford. Well done.
Good.
And okay, we've now got another one here.
I am not dead, says the dead man to the raven. Okay. Starting with dialogue is always tricky, right? We've said that for a long time. Part of the trickiness of it comes from the fact that dialogue inherently lacks context. So here we have this very interesting interplay between what is said and then the explication of what is said in the dialogue tag, which is interesting. I'm intrigued, but I don't get a lot of information from this. And of course, the capitalization of Raven tells me this might be some kind of fantasy. Obviously also the speaking dead person or not dead person. I don't know. So intriguing for sure. Maybe too on the nose. I would have to see more to give better feedback on this specific line, I think.
Cool. That was a YA fantasy called The Nameless by C.A. Warner. So yeah, on the nose there. Let's hit another one.
Let's do it. The man across the street stared at her through the window, the hem of his old and worn black cloak flapping in the wind. The man across the street stared at her through the window, the hem of his old and worn black cloak flapping in the wind. So I think one thing to consider when you're constructing your first lines is notice what you are asking your readers to notice, right? So you've given us this sort of voyeuristic scenario with someone peeping through a window, and yet you've then shifted the focus to a worn hem, right? So how much language here is devoted to the hem versus how much language is devoted to the act of looking through a window? None of the language tells us what he sees her doing, right? And I think that's really the more interesting thing. I don't know from this sentence whether the man is sort of surreptitiously looking or if he is waiting to turn his own key in the lock and is just sort of gazing through the window lovingly, right? There's no cue here about the nature of the voyeurism, but that's the more interesting thing. So, a hem can flap in the wind any old time. It doesn't have to be in your first line. I think this is probably the right moment to start, but the wrong focus.
Cool. That was historical romantic suspense called Steal My Heart by Carrie Davis.
Historical romantic suspense. Okay. Yeah.
But I think a lot of folks, we're a bit confused whether he was like inside or outside. I think, as you said, it's like tough to imagine. Like, what is he doing? Is he standing on the other side of the road on a pavement? Or
Yeah, like, is it like, what's that show with Penn Badgley? It's great. Her or she, some kind of pronoun. I don't remember. But he's basically always stalking some unsuspecting woman. And
uh,
and it's great, right? But he's like, he looks in a very specific way. And if I had to describe how he was looking, his furtiveness and his sort of desire to be hidden or inconspicuous is just as important as the act of looking itself.
cool. Here's our next one from Christina.
Leda pulled her hood lower to fight the frigid wind. There's a lot of weather, getting a lot of weather vibes from this group today. Pulled her hood lower to fight the frigid wind, biting her face, signaling an early fall that her body was not prepared for. So some interesting things here. I'm interested in what it means for a body to be ill-prepared for autumn. If this means that there's like food scarcity or a hunger issue or things like that, I think that that can be a really interesting clue about that. So I commend that specificity. But I don't know, man. Just wind. I just think weather is something we need to, like, this belongs in your first chapter, maybe even your first paragraph or your first page. But I'm not sure that, the focus again is on the wind. Now, wind is a special thing, right? Because whenever you signal wind, you are inadvertently or intentionally signaling the winds of change, right? And so we know that something is, maybe we know from this that something is about to change for Leda, and she's like on the verge of an adventure or a journey, and that's great. But I just think there's a more interesting way to articulate that than just, manipulating clothing. Or maybe I'm just not interested in outerwear, hoods, cloaks. I'm just feeling like this is sort of the least interesting thing about Leda, I suspect. I'm more interested in this body that's not prepared for fall. And so if you could get in there a little better and focus more on that in your first line, I think you'll capture that sort of emotional immediacy, that emotional investment that we want our readers to have.
Like, yeah, it was like, yeah, I guess maybe like a cloak or a hood. It's like a sort of a shortcut to mysterious and enigmatic.
Yeah. And like, it's also sometimes a shorthand for fantasy, right? Like hood, not so much,
Yeah,
because I mean, a hood can be a hoodie, but it could be a cloak. We don't know. But I think cloaks, capes, things like that. It's a good, in some ways, it's a good signal of a time that is not now, right? It just signals not contemporary, but it doesn't. We don't know if it's Victorian. We don't know if it's like a Game of Thrones kind of high fantasy world. So I just think, recognize when you're reaching for a shorthand, or say, okay, well, what do I want my readers to know about my characters or about my world based on the clothing that my characters wear, and get sort of honest with yourself about how specific you really are with those cues, right? Like armor, like leather armor is a very specific piece of outerwear that would tell us something about both the world and your character. But like a hood is not, it doesn't have that propulsive power or that identifying power that some other clothing pieces can have.
cool. Thank you so much for that, Denitra Rennie Tyler. Nope, that was the next one. Sorry, the previous one there was Christina, and that was A Light Concealed, as you suspected, a fantasy novel. The next one comes from Denitra. Here it is.
He looked like he paid for all the ugly in the universe and got a volume discount. Okay. That is funny and pithy. I think it's a little clunky just from a syntax, just from where we are in syntax. I'm curious about the narrative voice here. I want to know who's making this judgment. And who is he? I think, I sometimes have a short fuse for just like a sort of profusion of pronouns. I think some people think it builds mystery or avoids the problem of, getting too name heavy at the outset of a book. But I think, like, is this a customer that our protagonist is like helping? Are they across? If this is like a retail scenario, is like, there's so much that you could say about the dynamic between the person looking and who they are looking at, that I would like to see some of that brought forward in a line like this. But I think it's funny, and I think this could be a voicey, interesting. I'm intrigued, but I think there's more here probably.
I get my first impression was a sort of 1940s gumshoe type, heavy on the figurative language.
Maybe, but I don't know. But that, like, where's our blonde dame? Like walking through the door. Like, that's, I think, kind of more what I would expect in that kind of scenario. So I don't know.
Plus, this is a sci-fi novel called Predator's Kiss. So I'm wondering whether it is some, like a sci-fi novel with a bit of a genre twist to it, or I don't know.
Yeah, like a noir sci-fi or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, this one is an illustrated book for children's aged 6 to 12. Here we go.
Just before so children ages 6 to 12. So is it a picture book or is it an illustrated chapbook? Do we know?
It doesn't say, but I don't know. Judging by the language, you'd hope for that age group it should be an illustrated chapbook.
Yeah. Just before daylight, look carefully at the rounded shadows underneath the enormous tree in El Parque Central, and you will see the street dogs of Oaxaca sleeping. Did I butcher? Oaxaca, I'm sorry. You'll see the street. I think this is very charming. I love this. Look carefully at the rounded shadows underneath. Yeah, I think this is so specific and evocative, and it feels like a secret, and I love it. Yeah, I think this is great. I have a 6 to 12-year-old, and this feels right on point for his reading level. Certainly a read aloud.
Does daylight make sense to you here?
Just before daylight. Yeah, so we're talking about dawn. So, but like rounded shadows underneath. So I guess there are shadows at night, of course, and certainly there are shadows at dawn.
Because I'm thinking, like, if you want to see street dogs sleeping, and there's rounded shadows, it says maybe you mean midday, perhaps, or before noon.
I think I'm wondering if this. It is a question, right? Like, there's like a sciencey issue here of like how deep will the shadows be if like the moon isn't high, but also the sun hasn't risen yet. There's that, the dark before the dawn is a real thing. Maybe like in the first moments of daylight, or like evoke something about dawn, because then we do get really long shadows. Though the shadows underneath the enormous tree would mean that the sun is higher. See, like, okay, I'm going to stop myself right here because I'm sure I'll embarrass myself with like my very shoddy understanding of like
shadows,
the way light moves. But yeah, right. But so the point is, look what's happened. We've become obsessed with like a small logistics detail, and that is keeping us from focusing on some of the other really beautiful things happening in the sentence. And so I think what this means is we just have to be really conscious of the fine details in a sentence like this that relies so heavily on every piece being accurate and executed properly. So, fact check yourself on the light necessary to cast the shadow that you're talking about. But otherwise, like, I think this is a beautiful image, and I think this is a great place to begin. It's so specific, and it draws us into this place that might not be familiar to a lot of people. Really, it draws us in really quickly, and I think that's great.
Cool. Thank you so much, Lillian R. Jackman, for sending that one in. It's called Violetta. People in the comments are asking for the names and the authors of these. Basically, I couldn't find an easy way to make it look good on screen. However, if you go to blog.reedsy.com/live, I'll send the link in an email that goes out in the next couple of days. And in the replay post of this, I'll put the names and the titles and the names of the authors, just in case you're interested in finding out who wrote those.
Thanks, Martin. That is a lot of effort on your part, and we appreciate it.
It really is, for the things I do for you guys at home. Okay, here's one from Davidson Mack.
Doing bad things to bad people came easy to Hap Lonigan. Yeah, sure did. Okay. I like the tone of this. I think this is short, but it also gives us a big cue about the kind of writing that we might find in the rest of this story, and I love that. I don't think I like that this is it's unfussy, it's uncluttered. There's no punctuation other than, of course, our end punctuation. It's thoughtful, it's well executed. Big check for me. It's not like the most interesting sentence I've ever read, so I don't know if it's gold star material, but I would say this definitely is inoffensive and effective and is doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, it's definitely of the genre. It's a political/military thriller called Brute Force. So when it comes to doing bad things to bad people, we know what Hap Lonigan uses. Brute Force.
Diplomacy.
It turns out Davidson really missell it. He really just talks people out of these tight situations. Doesn't use any force whatsoever. But yeah. I like it too. All right, I've got a next one here from Donna Jane Shine.
Brad Kavanaugh, huh? That's giving me a little pump the brakes on that name right there. Brad Kavanaugh tried to concentrate on reversing his precious yellow Lamborghini, but the words "You killed Sammy Joe" were stamped on his mind. Okay, so the first thing we need to talk about is this name, which is a little too close to Brett Kavanaugh. Okay, I'm sure that this good person's writing predated the appointment of that specific Supreme Court justice, but it happened, right? So maybe you need to go in and change that, unless it's a really intentional parallel, which is also possible, I guess. Maybe there's a big statement here about your feelings,
but
about that appointment.
I picked this one because I think it feels like it was maybe intentional, or because I do see quite a lot of people who choose names that these sound very much like maybe the sort of celebrity that perhaps this is supposed to be like.
Maybe, but okay. So the laws on this, and again, I am not giving legal advice, and you should consult a lawyer if you have questions about, the legality of anything in your book. However, I believe that the rule around libel is libel, right? Libel is written, slander is spoken. So the rule around libel is that there has to be a physical likeness as well. Other than a name similarity. So, I mean, there could be some leeway here. It could be, I want to presume unintentionality, I think. But if the author is on, and you can pop into the comments and let us know if this is an intentional name similarity, please do that. Otherwise, let's look at the rest, okay? Person tried to concentrate on reversing his precious yellow Lamborghini. This colon does not need to be here. This should be a comma. A colon is used for very specific purposes. In terms of the music of a line, the colon is gonna sort of highlight the downbeat, or the resolving note of a sentence. But the words "You killed Sammy Joe" were stamped on his mind. So one way to punctuate this would be, person tried to concentrate on reversing his precious yellow Lamborghini, comma, but the words, no comma, italicized, "You killed Sammy Joe," and italics were stamped on his mind. So that the indirect dialogue, right, which is kind of what that is, does not need to be offset by commas. That's a Chicago Manual of Style subject that you can learn about there. But I think that punctuation will certainly help. Can we change this? We can? Oh, okay. So get rid of that colon for me.
Yep.
Get rid of all the punctuation.
Yep. Okay, let's see this.
Look at the magic of the internet. That was amazing, Martin. You are a wonder. Okay. So yes, Brad Kavanaugh. Oh my God. Brad Kavanaugh tried to concentrate on reversing his precious yellow Lamborghini, but the words "You killed Sammy Joe" were stamped on his mind. Okay. Concentrate on reversing his precious yellow Lamborghini. I almost feel some kind of disconnect between the person sort of ostentatious and like car savvy enough to buy a yellow Lamborghini, but then drive it when they wouldn't be able to concentrate. I have a lot of questions here. Ultimately, this is a better version of the sentence because of the punctuation. I have questions about the name. I have questions about the wisdom of driving a precious anything when we are super distracted by potentially having just committed murder. So I'm intrigued, and that's a good thing. So I would say this might need a tweak or two beyond the punctuation mechanics, but this is interesting. I wouldn't necessarily rewrite this. I think that's as gung-ho as I can get about this sentence without more information.
Okay. That's from the mystery novel Where is Sammy Joe by Donna Jane Shire. Thank you, Donna. Let me see if I find the next one here. This one, I feel like I should tell you just that it is from a memoir by George Ryder.
Okay. You're excused if you can't find Lonelyville on a map or even Fire Island on the first try. So Fire Island is a real place. And I guess that's making it difficult for me to understand if Lonelyville is.
I checked this before. It turns out it is. It's like a neighborhood on Fire Island.
Oh my gosh. Really?
I thought it was like, it sounds super on the nose, but like, oh, okay, it turns out.
So do you know anything about Fire Island?
I do not.
Oh, okay. So Fire Island has a reputation, and it is generally a place for the parties, for the raucousness. So I think what I'm interested in here is I'm interested in the sort of juxtaposition of there's Prim. You see her over there? I'm sorry, you can't. Okay. The juxtaposition of the idea of Lonelyville as like a sad sack kind of idea with the sort of frivolity that I associate with Fire Island. So I really love that contrast. I think that's really nicely done. You're excused if you can't. So the use of the second person here, I guess, is another question that we'd have to consider. Is the whole book in second person? I don't know what to say about that. Oh, goodness. Hey, Prim. Cat butt. Okay, let me just. Okay.
Some indecent content.
You're going to have to go through and censor this. Okay, don't rip my headphones out. Sit nicely and say hi to everybody. They miss you. I like the Lonelyville versus Fire Island. I don't know how I feel about use of second person. It could work. It could not. We would have to keep reading to know for sure.
All right. That's from George Ryder. It's Lonelyville, A Personal History of Fire Island. I was like, just the title of it, very drawn by that.
Yeah, I have to do a little desk choreography to make space for this cat, but she's here. She loves these broadcasts.
Okay. Well, I'll set up the next one. Just so you know, this one is a children's illustrated picture book aged 4 to 7 from J.H. Flounders. 4 to 7.
Okay. In the heart of the jungle, in a Meranti tree, Hornbill checked her nest for an egg carefully. So carefully is a misplaced modifier here. The thing that is done carefully is the checking, not the egg, right? The egg isn't carefully, the checking is carefully. So if we were to keep all the language and just reorganize it, it would have to be in the heart of the jungle in a Meranti tree. Hornbill carefully checked her nest for an egg.
I suspect there's probably
a rhyme. Yeah, rhyme scheme. That was the next thing I was going to say, is that this might be essential, but we cannot bend grammar to the will of a rhyme scheme. I don't know. Parents are buying these books, right? Obviously a 4-year-old or even a 7-year-old does not actually know anything about dangling modifiers, but I think parents are the ones who have to read this. There's a great, this almost reminds me of the, like the rhythm of the Snatch-a book, which is a great picture book. Again, this is the second sort of illustrated or children's book that we've seen that has this very specific location cue, and I love that. I think that's really powerful, and a wonderful addition. But I think, I would encourage you to make the rhyme scheme work without violating any of your meanings, right? We still need language to make meaning before it makes music. So I would just, find something that rhymes with egg. There's a lot.
Yeah. And also, I think it doesn't quite scan either, because I think the thing we hear a lot is that most publishers of children's picture books say, don't do rhyme unless you do it really, really well.
Oh, I see. So it's trying to rhyme tree and carefully. In the
Yeah.
heart of the jungle in a Moranti tree, Hornbill checked her nest for an egg carefully. Aha, aha, aha. Yeah, no, it doesn't scan. See, here I'm just intensely focused on the line as a whole, but actually, so technically this is 2 lines but 1 sentence, which is fine for the purposes of this. But so we don't even need to know for an egg. Hornbill checked her nest carefully. There, we fixed it.
Oh yeah. What else is the hornbill going to be checking her
What
nest?
else are you checking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the illustrations would be able to articulate some of that care, and I would imagine that the presence or lack thereof of an egg is going to be articulated later on. So forget everything I just said, take out for an egg, and then this is perfect.
Cool. Hey, that's an easy fix. Thank
We
you,
did it.
J.H. Flounders, A Wish to the Moon. Great. All right. I've had a couple of crime ones already, so I may skip that one. Okay.
We've had a lot of crime and a lot of fantasy. We got to...
Crime and fantasy is the biggest bulk of what's been submitted. I put a couple fewer YA ones because we've had complaints about that before. Because
yes, there were a lot of complaints last time, too much YA. Yeah.
So this time, I'm trying to find a few more kids ones. This one, you'll figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm. Life in the diplomatic corps for Addie Malone was like a beautiful Christmas ornament. Incorrect use of semicolon. Glittering and exciting when seen from across the room, but hollow and easily broken when examined closely. Okay, so this is lovely. We here need a colon instead of a semicolon. A semicolon connects 2 complete sentences with a subject and verb on either side. Those sentences would also have to be sort of inextricably linked by meaning. So, I always say with a semicolon that generally we wouldn't be able to understand either sentence in its fullness without the subsequent sentence. So, if your sentence doesn't qualify on those levels, I would not reach for a semicolon. So, you fixed it.
Yeah.
Again, the magic of interwebs. Life in the diplomatic corps for Addie Malone was like a beautiful Christmas ornament, glittering and exciting. Are Christmas ornaments exciting? I've never had a Christmas tree, so I don't know how exciting they are, but my understanding is that they are not like a cause for excitement. So I don't know how I feel about that word, glittering and exciting. When seen from across the room, maybe dynamic instead of exciting, right? Like maybe we're talking about the overall impression of an ornament. I can't pretend to know how people feel about Christmas ornaments, but hollow and easily broken when examined up close or closely. Can't decide which would feel better there. So yeah, I think exciting is not the right choice here.
Alluring?
I like there's no quick easy word. Maybe German has a word for it, but the impression I'm getting is that it's the faraway impression of being something solid versus the up close reality that something is very fragile. So maybe that's it, but I wouldn't know how to say that in a way that would beautifully fit into this sentence. But I really like this. I think this is a unique simile. We don't often hear experiences compared to Christmas ornaments. At least I haven't. And I'm quite charmed by this. So I think this is good. I think you have to work on that one word, which is sort of a cog in the wheel. But other than that, I think this is quite nice.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was The Crooked Boy, a piece of literary fiction by Jacqueline M. Briggs. I feel like it sounds like a familiar name to me. Could be a great pen name, or maybe you've been on one of these before, Jacqueline. Anyway, here is our next one.
Standing at the threshold of the Middletons' ballroom, Lady Isabella Avery found herself ducking behind an azure velvet curtain. So any good historical romance reader knows that, you know, the edges of the ballroom is where all the good stuff happens. The threshold of the Middleton's ballroom leads to the living room. There's a dog behind an azure velvet curtain. Would there be a curtain right at the threshold? Maybe if she's coming in from a terrace? So like a little bit of a logistics issue for me here. Again, I get hung up on these things, and your readers will too. I think coming in from a terrace, I would expect heavy velvet curtains right near sort of French doors or whatever it is. Excuse the cat. Could you do less of this? But I would just maybe get a little bit more specific if she's coming.
Oh my.
Prim, I'm really sorry. She likes how warm she likes the heat coming off of the monitor because she's an old cat, and so she's always cold. Anyway, if this is coming through the terrace, it makes sense. If not, I'm unclear about how close a heavy curtain would be to a doorway coming from the interior of a building. But, you know, I'm sure better minds than mine have thought more carefully about Regency architecture, but that's the hang up I have with this. It's just a little bit of that logistics integrity that we want to make sure.
Oh no.
I don't know what to, I know.
We're getting a lot of love. Can you remind us what her name is?
Yes, this is Primrose Everkitten. She is a 9-year-old purebred Siberian hypoallergenic cat because my husband is allergic, and she often likes to stand directly in front of my screen because, like I said, it generates a lot of heat, and it is not super convenient. So I'll just, you know what? I'm just gonna, nope. Okay, there it is. There, we can share. Okay. Okay. I'm getting the side eye. All right. You might have to read me the next one, Martin. Okay.
All right. I'm
ready for the next one.
I'm ready for the next one. People have been asking for. Oh no, I've lost my mouse cursor. Here we are. People have been asking for more memoir non-fiction.
Okay.
I won't acquiesce to every demand from the comments, but
right.
for this one I shall. This one's
Stay
from
strong.
a memoir.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
If I could live on Twinkies
and sweet creamy coffee, I would. I mean, here, right? So this is a nice little piece of characterization. Am I still on the camera? Okay. This is a nice piece of characterization. And, you know, Twinkies are so specific. They're almost a joke food in my mind. Like I always struggle to remember that people actually eat them because they're just so specific. So, you know, it does give me the specificity that I like. And certainly I would expect this person to maybe be talking about, you know, a life of, I don't know, I think this says a lot about who this person could be. And I don't want to make assumptions about anyone based on their like consumption of food because that's weird. But I think this is an interesting place to start. And I guess I would say to this memoir author, you know, just recognize that when your first focus is food, or consumption of any kind, you're saying something really specific about you and maybe even about your story. So I would give that some thought, but you know, I like the sort of the specificity and honesty of this. I think is quite charming.
It's a memoir from Lassell Barrett called Comfort Food, and just the combo of that alone, I quite like the idea of a book that's.
I feel like you could have led with the title.
Yeah, sorry, I probably should have. Yeah.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, I love that. I mean, I'm very charmed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lassell Barrett, for that one. Okay, here's another one that you needs no introduction.
This may be the most important question I've ever had to answer: Oxford white convertible Mustang or snowflake white Miata? I don't know what to say about this because it's just I mean, until we know what this person's answer to the question is, I don't know how compelling the question is to like car heads, right? So maybe the real interest for me would be in articulating the reason behind their choice, but articulating the question itself doesn't necessarily draw me in. I think it draws in a very specific reader, and maybe that's exactly what you want to do. But I think if we're talking about, being widely read or giving access to a specific subject to people who are not initiated already into the language of those specific subjects, maybe this is the wrong place to start. I also think it says something maybe not great about a person when the most important question you've ever had to answer is about like 2 fancy cars.
Yeah.
I don't know how relatable that is.
I don't think it's meant to be.
Right. So maybe that's the case, and it's supposed to be like a real line in the sand about me versus the rest of you. But if that's not the intention, it's probably what's happening on some level. So I think you just need to be kind of aware of that.
Yeah. For me, as someone who like has a passing understanding of cars, it reads a bit odd to me because they're choosing between like 2 different shades of white. The fact that, this character is prissy enough and supercilious enough maybe to care between, to know the distinctions between that. A Mustang and a Miata are very, very different cars. One's like a muscle car, and the other one's like a tiny convertible that, a hairdresser might drive. So
a hairdresser, you say?
Well, yeah, that's what someone once told me. It's like, this is a real hairdresser's car.
That's really funny. I'm not a car head, and I don't know anything about this. And so, while I am intrigued by someone deciding between 2 shades of white about like anything, like if this was an interior decorating scenario, I would also think it's kind of funny. But you bring up that great point, right? Like these are 2 very different things, just with 2 very similar colors. And so so that I think even more like takes the heat out of the importance of the question, because if these cars are so different, then they just serve very different purposes. And so like the question might even not be about, the question isn't about the color at all. It's about the function of the car for whatever the purpose is. And so I just think that it invalidates this claim about the most important question. So yeah, I'm less intrigued by this. I guess I would prefer it if the author starts by saying, in X scenario, I chose Y vehicle. That could be a better entry, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, that was Just the Girl and Her Dog, a YA romance by Kelly Kendra Hughes. Thanks for sending that one in, Kelly.
Wait, the one about the cars is a YA romance?
Yeah. Because I get the feeling this is like, judging by those things, it's like a rich high school girl who's maybe had to pick like what her first car is going to be or something.
Really? Rich high school girl goes for the muscle car?
That's what threw me off. The Miata makes sense because that's sort of like a cute car.
You are really gendering these vehicles, Martin. I mean, I don't know what the comment section is going to do to you here, but I want to hear from my women driving convertible Mustangs. Well, you got to show Martin that muscle cars are for everyone.
Eve says Miatas are supposed to be excellent cars.
Yeah, I frankly live in New England, so I drive a Honda CR-V just like everybody else who lives here. So there's nothing really to say about it.
But I guess, yeah, if it requires you to have some knowledge of what's available on the car market, it may be a hard first line for a teen reader, perhaps.
Yeah, only a slim portion of your audience demographic drives, right? So I don't know. We have a lot of questions about this. I think this is probably a misfire.
Okay.
People are going to yell at us if we don't move on. We have to go.
Maria Morris has this line.
My dad was a cat lady. I love this. Guilty. I think this is really funny and voicey, but very precise and pithy and quick, and I love it. I would not change a thing. That ear twitch from Prim was her approval. So
she's been known to pick the next big bestseller. So
yeah, I mean, she sat on a manuscript of The Hunger Games. No, I'm totally kidding. She didn't, but it would be great if she did.
Cool. That was Maria Morris. Contents Under Pressure. Cool. Here's
great title. Great title. Really good.
I won't tell you what she put as a genre because I don't think you'd like it.
It's got a string, right? It's like many things. What is it? Tell me.
It just says female.
no. Female is not a genre. Okay. Female is a gender. But that is not a genre. Maybe you were thinking about women's fiction. But even that pushes some buttons, some uncomfortable buttons. I read a book. Oh, it is snowing now. You asked me if it was snowing, and now it has just started to snow. You brought this on us, Martin.
I think I may have said that before the broadcast, but I called it.
Man, you did call it, which is we're an ocean away, but you managed to foresee this, and I did not. Yeah, female is not. It's not a genre. Okay, no.
All right.
Awkward.
Okay, folks are asking like how many more we're going to do. We're basically just going to go straight up to the end of the hour. I know everyone's sort of keen to go through these so we can get to the ones you submitted. But I'll tell you now, I meant to say earlier, we had about over 1,000 submissions, so the chances that we're getting through to yours are probably quite small, but hopefully you're learning quite a lot through these. Okay.
You know what, Martin? So we might do bonus episodes, right?
Yeah.
We've done that in the past. And then we could also, because we don't get to everything in the bonus episodes either, I would be open to you batching these to me, and then I will thread them in a Twitter First Line Frenzy. If
that'd be cool.
Is also a possible thing that we can do.
All right. So, if you guys are signed up to this webinar, I'll send along Becca's Twitter handle. If not, just search for Rebecca Heyman or actually...
Our Faith Editorial.
Our Faith Editorial.
Yeah,
it's your separate brand.
Like I made this decision in 2003 when I joined Twitter, and I just haven't changed it.
You can change it and keep your account.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I will. I mean, it is the name of my company. Faith is my middle name. It's not I don't deal in Christian editing. Maybe the Never Had a Christmas Tree was your first clue. Yeah, so that's just, it's my name. It's my company. I think I'm going to leave it.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is
then.
maybe if you send these to me, I discourage people from just randomly shooting me these first lines, because I definitely will not give you a first line critique outside of a First Line Frenzy designated time, because otherwise I would just be doing that all day. But potentially I will thread these in a specific First Line Frenzy, but don't start sending me your first lines on Twitter unless I ask you to.
Yeah, so I'll send Becca the ones that everyone has submitted so far, and that, folks at home, is how you build a platform. Okay, next.
When the fishbowl got to Gwendolyn, the paper she pulled out read funeral director. This is great. I love this. This is so specific, right? I think if we had to describe the function, or maybe the one quality that all great first lines have, it's specificity. And this is so specific. It's beautifully punctuated. Do we need the quotations around funeral director? That is a question I would have to consider. I don't think it's a real pressing question, to be honest. Some people like to put quotations around this because it's written, right? It's written on there. But the colon also sort of does that work for us already. So I like it. I would pretty much leave this exactly as it is. I wouldn't start futzing around with the mechanics. I don't think that they are going to be a big issue. I think there's more than one way to skin a cat. Sorry. There's more than one way to use punctuation to be clear. And I think this is very clear and very effective. And I'm here for it. I like it.
Cool. That was a middle grade novel called Dream Shifter by Lois Wickstrom.
Middle grade, huh?
I'm imagining this. I'm imagining it's like a party game, yeah?
It feels very adult to me.
I know the fishbowl.
It feels like maybe the fishbowl. I just feel like it's kind of like a maybe choosing something about careers or professions, or maybe there's a career day in the near future.
Maybe
a very morbid career day. I'm just trying to shield you from that X-rated view of Prem. So yeah, but I like this. I think this is very charming and very specific, and I like those things a lot.
Okay, here is I'm gonna do one that's a bit more. Here we go. The
village storyteller, not hyphenated. The village storyteller stood facing his audience, seated on bamboo benches, and spoke in a slow, deliberate manner to make each word distinct and meaningful. So the back half of this is entirely redundant. Speaking in a slow, deliberate manner is, we do only do that for one reason, and it's to make each word distinct. I mean, meaningful is very subjective, but the effort to make every word distinct is sort of obviated by the slow, deliberate manner of speech. And so I think you could just chop that right at manner and be fine. Storyteller with a hyphen is an interesting choice. It could be an in-world decision. Maybe there's also like a story writer and a story recorder. So maybe that's true. But if this is like a formal role within the village, I would just capitalize storyteller and keep it as one word. James Taylor style. So the village storyteller stood facing his audience. The other issue is stood facing versus seated on bamboo benches. You need to specify that it's the audience who is seated. So I might say the village storyteller stood facing his audience who were seated or who was seated, depending on how you feel about audience as a collective noun, and spoke in a slow, deliberate manner. So I think some tweaks, but I'm interested. I love a good fantasy village. Is this a fantasy? Is this YA fantasy?
It's magical realism.
Okay, but is it though? Because that's not. Is it?
I don't know.
That's
maybe
a very specific
maybe
genre.
It's sort of set in a real world village setting.
Yeah, so that's urban. So if this is the real world plus magic, you could be talking about urban fantasy. But magical realism is like an extremely specific genre, and I generally find that a lot of people invoke magical realism without totally understanding what that means, which is not to say that this author falls in that category, but I would always double check and make sure that you are really tagging your work specifically when it comes to magical realism with a lot of intention, because it says a lot to your readers, whether they're agents or retail end users of books, right? Those kinds of readers who buy your book. Magical realism is not the same thing as urban fantasy. Urban fantasy is not about cities; it's about our world, right? As opposed to high fantasy, which is about other worlds. So we can go into that.
Whenever I see folks label their stuff as magical realism, because it's so specific, it always says to me I'm the second coming of Marquez.
Everybody thinks of Marquez. Everybody does. But I think a lot of times you have to look at words like paranormal and urban fantasy and magical realism and really understand the distinctions between them. Because remember, genre tagging is not about ego, right? It's about helping your readers find you. And so if you're promising magical realism, but what you deliver is urban fantasy, you're going to have a bunch of disgruntled readers who might leave you bad reviews.
Cool. That was Seek the Future by Manu Depinas. Thank you for sending that in. Really appreciate that. Good to squeeze in a couple more before the end of the hour. Here we go.
Alex Tomasini wasn't just the best soccer player at Beaumont Christian School. He was also a celebrity. I feel like these need to be swapped, right? Alex Tomasini wasn't just a celebrity. He was also the best soccer player at Beaumont Christian School, because the celebrity is sort of the well-known thing. Or maybe I don't feel that way. I guess I'd play with it both ways. It depends on what the purpose of this introduction is. I guess it feels like the celebrity should come first because it's the more well-known marker of identity for this person. And then you're saying, actually, he's not just this, he's also this lesser known thing. And so the lesser known thing, obviously, outside of the Beaumont Christian School community is probably going to be that he's a great soccer player. How do you feel about the semicolon? It's valid from a grammatical point of view. It feels a little heavy-handed to me. I might look at an M dash here. That's the long dash. I might play with that and just see how you feel about it. Maybe M dash.
Do you do spaces between your M dashes? Because we don't hear it.
No.
Leave it.
No. Right. No, they're supposed to be this way. I I think I like it better with an M dash. I don't know. I'm sure that the comments are going to weigh in, and it'll be a very divisive moment for the comment section. So good luck to you there. But I think I think the casualness of the M dash is what I'm responding to here. It feels more consistent with the rest of the sentence.
All right.
Let's squeeze in one more before the end of the hour because the people want more.
Okay. This is Tomasini's Trophy, a YA novel by William Day. Thank you, William, for sending that in. And here's our final one for the hour. And Becca, I'll give you extra points if you can guess what the title of this book is.
Let's get one thing straight. I don't punch zombies. I have to guess the title?
You can. All the elements are there.
The Zombie Puncher?
You got it.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think for this first line to work, you probably need to know the title.
I don't know that we need the context of a title in order to appreciate this line in all of its fullness. Okay, this is another fact, a fact line, but it is very voicey and it is punctuated perfectly. This is the exact right use of a colon. Pay attention, everyone. This is precisely the way we should be using a colon. It's the punchline, no pun intended. It's the sort of resolving downbeat of the musical sentence here. I like it. I think it's got a lot of purpose. It's got a lot of pizzazz. I wouldn't change it.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of the hour. Okay, I know Shaylin's in the comments there handling some of this stuff.
Hi, Shaylin. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaylin. Yeah, we're getting too many people for me to do both of this at the same time. She'll put Rebecca's Twitter handle there. Also, if you signed up, if you registered for this event, I'll send a follow-up email tomorrow, hopefully with links to Rebecca's profile and also her Twitter account. So I'll send these all over to her. But just as a little proviso, we don't promise to get through all of them because, Becca, I think it may be more than 1,000. So you probably don't want to commit to all of them. But we might do a few more of these as a bonus episode. But check in on that and check in on our Instagram just for when these things drop. Okay, before we sign off for today, Becca, you are an editor here on Reedsy. Are you in want of new authors to work with?
Always. I would like to hear from you if you're writing romance of all stripes. I would like to hear from you if you are writing like commercial fiction, adult commercial, YA commercial. I'm open to a lot. I think it's easier to tell you what I'm not interested in, which is horror, space opera, super duper high fantasy, like sword and sorcery high fantasy. It's just not my jam. Not really editing much erotica these days. There are great editors who do. And I don't actually work with much nonfiction. So you can certainly reach out about your memoir, but I'm just super finicky about memoir. So that is something to consider. But generally, I just like to hear from you. So you can say hi on Twitter and we can start talking there. You can always find me on Reedsy and message me there or ask me to take a look at your project. And I would love to do that. I'd be honored to do that. And, we're always around. I'm not hard to find.
Yeah, cool. Remember, we'll drop a link to her Reedsy profile. Go get her through that. Becca prefers to work through Reedsy anyway, so make sure you do that.
I sure do, you guys. I mean, but the truth is, if you do reach out to me on any platform and you found me through Reedsy, we're going to do the work through Reedsy because we are. So, Reedsy is beautiful. And actually, if you go over and make a profile, I think you'll find that it's full of useful stuff. The Reedsy blog is amazing. Shaylin is always posting incredible content on the Reedsy Instagram and YouTube and things like that. So just drink the Kool-Aid. Join the Reedsy community.
Well, thanks for doing my job for me there. We're going to log off in just a minute, but if you still hear this, give us a like. We can push it over 300 likes, which would, I don't know, it's an arbitrary benchmark, but it would help me.
Is that a good thing? We should do that?
Yeah. Just get over 300. Bruce says, Rebecca is my favorite. Mine too. I love all the others as well. But
preach.
But yeah, we're going to have a few more of these in perpetuity. I'm looking to have the next one in 2 weeks. I've yet to book a guest. So if you know anyone excellent, Rebecca, let me know. Otherwise, I may have to go search for something, but we'll find something interesting for you guys, probably on a writing topic. It's the start of a new year. Everyone's doing their writing. And I see, Ask and I Shall Receive over 300 likes. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, your daughter's made a cameo. All right, we better sign off now.
Okay, we gotta go.
All right, bye.
Bye.